Hey guys, I'm Barb and welcome to episode 10 of Creators Campfire. If you're new here, then this is a live stream podcast where I interview all sorts of creative people, so entrepreneurs, content creators, side hustlers, and general aspiring talent to find out more about what they do, why they do it, and how they do it. For those joining us live tonight, if you have any questions as we go through, just drop them in the comments and we'll get to them as we go. Tonight we have Samara Kasai joining us, and she is a tarot reader and instructor. And tonight we'll be finding more about what that involves specifically and how Samara created this intuitive online course. And we'll go into all the details about that as well. So guys, please welcome Samara. Hey.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. I'm doing really well. Yeah, and I just wanted to flag, my preferred pronouns are actually they, them, so that is going to be the best way for me to be referred to. But yeah, so excited to be here.
Sweet, I'm very excited to have you on. Thank you for joining us. So tarot card reading is kind of, well, actually, to be honest, it's one of those things that, at least for me, I know about, but I don't know too much in detail. So it's one of those things that I'm aware of. Could you just give us a bit of a background about what it is and how it works?
Ooh, everyone wants to know how it works. I feel like that's like the secret question. But there are 78 cards in most decks. And the way that I approach tarot, everyone kind of will approach it their own way. Like, I like to teach that everyone has their own relationship with their cards, and their cards will talk to them about certain things. But I use tarot to connect to my highest self. So the version of me that's like already living the awesome life and doing the awesome things. And I'll ask that version of myself, like, hey, I'm in a really tough situation. Like, do you have advice for me? And so that's like one way that I'll use it. And I'll also use it to connect to my ancestors, to any entity that I think could help me in a given situation. So if I'm having like some imposter syndrome, I'll say, like, I want to use my cards to connect with whoever like set up this opportunity for me. And I just want to ask, like, why is this opportunity for me? What am I here to bring to the operation? And just using it to kind of like light myself up in that way. And so I see the tarot cards as a really great way to get advice and to get out of your own head. And even if you're just playing like an imagination game and you don't believe in all of like the woo, it's a way for you to say, like, I'm outsourcing the figuring out to someone other than me. And so that's why I love cards. And I think it works in a lot of ways. There's very like, psychological ways to explain it. So the idea of taking an image, staring at that image, and then that leading into kind of what your subconscious mind already believes is a psychological concept that's been used very widely. And we all know the images of like people in movies and having them show the kid like an image and asking the kid, what do you see on this picture? And so some people will say that it's the same concept. You look at an image long enough and then you start to draw conclusions from what you're staring at. And then some believe that it really is like a divine hand who's guiding you and who's using the images to paint a picture for you and communicate with you about your life. So it just depends on how you want to think about it.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot behind that then. I guess I hadn't even thought about. So to me, it's one of those images of, I don't know, this is incredibly outdated or, just kind of maybe stereotypical in that you might go to a fair or something and you've got someone sitting in a hut and there's cards and it's like, oh, predict my future. But actually that's kind of, yes, I guess there is an element of that, but that's kind of totally different. And there's a lot of different ways that you can use that for in terms of every day and to connect to different things. That's actually very, very interesting. How did you get into this?
So do you mean how did I get into reading tarot at all, or how did I start reading for clients?
Firstly, how did you get into it at all?
Okay, so I found tarot in college. I grew up in a very like strict Christian household and was never exposed to anything other than that for my whole life. And so I wasn't even like exposed to like the person at the fair, like with the cards. Like that was just not part of my world. And when I was in college, I was also figuring out all of my gender stuff and my queerness. And I learned, I guess, that like a big part of queer culture is finding like alternate spirituality. So astrology is really big. Tarot is really big. Anything that allows you to kind of feel like you have that relationship with divine without all of the dogma that religion can carry. And so I was looking into like on all these YouTubers who were just talking about like, you know, what YouTubers just talk about their lives and like you just follow them and you're like, oh, you're so cool. So I was following all these queer YouTubers trying to like accept myself basically. And a lot of them were talking about this other YouTube channel where the girl would read tarot cards and the tarot card readings were always so spot on and everyone loved it. And so I found this YouTuber and I just became obsessed with why this person always knew exactly what was going on with me, even though she was talking to like hundreds of thousands of subscribers at once. And I bought my first deck and I just became obsessed with learning all about it.
Wow. Okay, that's actually really cool. So how does one learn tarot? That sounds like a silly question, but is there like, and I realize that, but is it one of those things? So again, I don't know, like learning any skill, there's normally like a lot of books or online content. So is it a case of just exactly the same and you can teach yourself, or is it something that you need to go and learn? Or how was your journey with it then?
Oh, okay, so there's a million journeys. I will talk about my journey and then I will talk about some things that I wish had existed or that were in my awareness when I was on my journey. So I got my first deck and I was lucky enough to find a like podcast where they were talking about reading tarot without a book. And I was like, because every time you buy a deck, the deck always comes with a book and the book will tell you exactly what the artist intended each card to mean. And so some people approach learning the tarot as like, I'm going to memorize this book and then I will have the meanings of every card in my head. And they treat it almost like a biology class where you have to learn all the bones or something like that. Or where you have to like memorize vocabulary. Like it becomes a memorization game for people because every deck comes with this book. And the way that I happened to stumble upon it, I bought my deck from someone who had a podcast, and that podcast was all about how to read tarot without ever looking at the book and just allowing yourself to kind of create your own relationship with your deck, which is the way that I teach too. So I would recommend that if someone just got their first deck, they don't rely too heavily on the book. And I'll just give away, like I have a free class about how you can read tarot without a book entirely. And this is one of the things I teach in that class. But it's just pulling a card each day. And then at the end of the day, writing down like 3 sentences that really stuck out to you about the day. Like what are things that happened to you that either like were odd or things that like got you feeling really emotional, or like what are some standout moments from the day? And as you do that, you start to associate cards with messages or cards with experiences, and you're creating this like data dictionary for yourself.
Oh, okay. So potentially stupid question. Is so when you say each deck comes with a book, is each deck different, or is each deck just slightly different as in it's got its own artist twist, but generally it's the same?
Generally it's the same. There's always going to be 78 cards, and there are certain like archetypes. So there's always going to be like the Fool is one of the cards. That there will pretty much be a Fool in every single deck. And it's just how the artist decided to portray the Fool. So, and then how the artist decided to assign meaning to it. So I actually have one of my favorite books here. And this Next World Tarot is written by an artist who is really into social justice. And I like to teach tarot through a social justice lens just because that's like my professional background and that's what I do. That's what I care about more than anything. And so she wrote this deck all about how in the next world, quote unquote, we don't have all of these systems of oppression and we don't have capitalism and we don't have all of these things. And so the cards that she drew kind of display, and you can even see like, this is the Justice card. And it's like very revolutionary, very like, has like a huge social justice twist to it. And so I hope that answers your question. I think I'm on a tangent now, but every deck is the same in that the card, there is always a Justice card. The Justice card does not always look like this. This is the person infusing their own angle into the card.
Yes, okay, but it's like, and I'm not saying they're the same, but it's like a pack of cards in terms of you have the same, it's the same idea, but you could get a pack of cards or a deck of cards that has got its own artist's spin on how they want that to. Okay.
Exactly.
Cool.
And tarot actually, it started off as a card game. So even how you're like, I'm like, you wouldn't think that they're the same, but in every deck of tarot, there's 4 suits, just like how you have with your playing cards. And there's the numbers 1 through 10. There's aces, kings, and queens. So it's like, it all started in a very similar frame to like the cards that we have that people are familiar with playing cards.
I did not know that. Okay, that's cool. So it actually started as a game. Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting. I definitely learned something there. So, yeah, this is enlightening. So you found tarot,
yes,
and you've learned how to read it, and you've created kind of not your own spin, but you've created your own relationship with your cards. What then takes you from just reading them and being aware of how it works to then saying, actually, know something, I'm going to go and teach this to other people?
So I started to read for clients, and I noticed that my clients, so this will give you, I feel like I'm trying to figure out how much of a tangent I want to go on. I don't think I want to go on so much of a tangent, but the first clients I had were not super fun to work with, to be honest with you. They were like, am I going to get sick? What, like, kind of like the predict my future, like, tell me, will I ever find love? Like all of these questions that were frankly just like disempowering for me, because I was like, you have free will at the end of the day. Like, I'm not here to tell you yes or no, you'll find love. Like, that's not fun. That's not why I do this. And I realized I felt like the clients who were coming to me as if I had some like super secret special information that like I don't have. Like, I cannot tell you. I can ask for advice. I use the cards as like a personal development tool. So I'll ask for advice. Like, what can you do to, learn more about the kinds of partners that would suit you? Or like, what can you do to get up confidence so that you go like approach people? Like, I can put it back into a personal development framework for you, and then we can go from there. But I got really frustrated with everyone coming to me asking me these questions that were like, you don't get it. And so I figured if I could just teach people a little bit about how tarot works, then that would help me get clients who are actually interested in like the kinds of conversations. Because now I have really cool conversations, and people will ask me like, how can I, combat the white supremacy in my life, or like how, like my internalized white supremacy, or I have someone else who just is testing out they, them pronouns. And we were talking about how they can like get up the courage to be more honest with the people in their lives, and how they can, lean into like, do they want a new name, and how they can navigate their gender transition. And those are the kinds of things I wanted to be doing with tarot. And I think until people know like what tarot is capable of and how it works, I'm going to keep getting the like, will I ever find love? And so it was kind of selfish. I was like, I'm just going to create some stuff so that people can see what tarot is capable of. And in doing that, they can not only like empower themselves to use the tarot like however they want to, but then if they do want a reading, they can come with like really insightful, awesome, interesting questions, because they believe that the deck can help them with that.
Yeah, no, I think that's good though. The thing is I think you need to be a little selfish, because what you don't want is you don't want to have this and then be like, what am I even doing? You want it to be something that you enjoy, but also it makes you pass on that. It's more valuable when you enjoy it, because then the other person enjoys it, and it becomes an experience rather than just ask me the question. Right. So yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So just before we move on, so obviously you've talked about how it's not just like answering those questions and predicting the future. Is there anything else that you want to call out about tarot reading or cards while we're talking about it to set people's perception?
So I have a whole workshop called Decolonize the Tarot, where it's just me for like over an hour calling out everything wrong, all the misperceptions and issues that people do not think about. And I guess I'll give you like one nugget now that's from that class, but that's like I just made it on demand now. So I did it live twice and I had like hundreds of people come. And I was like, okay, this is the biggest thing I've ever done. Clearly everyone's curious about this. I'm just going to put one of the recordings on my website, and people have now just been like buying it off my website to like have access to it. So this is this is a very loaded question is what I'm trying to say. But one thing that I think is really important, going back to like the whole idea of each artist kind of infuses the deck in their own way. A lot of people don't connect, especially if you're from a marginalized community or from like a couple of marginalized communities. They might not connect with what they think of as tarot because the most popular deck that we have only shows white people and really only shows people who are like, there's no queer people on that deck. There's no like trans people. Like the deck that I was talking about, it has like brown people, queer people, trans people, like people in all financial situations. And it just displays like real human life. And finding decks like this is what has allowed me to actually feel like I'm a part of this. And like it is like a co-creation, like it speaks to me rather than like I was so uncomfortable with the idea of like only looking at white faces for advice and for guidance. And I think we get enough of that by living in the world. And so if you're having trouble, if you're a marginalized person and you are turned off by it, or maybe someone gifted you a deck and you don't like it, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of decks out there, and there's probably one that is going to resonate with you. And it's perfectly valid that the one that you have probably doesn't.
Yeah. And before we potentially go down a rabbit hole, then just while we're on this, why do you think that is? Is that just because of how long it's, again, it's sort of clearly a much bigger question, but is it one of those things that it's just been going on for, I mean, I don't even know how old tarot reading is, so feel free to jump in and correct me, but is it just something it's one of those, it's always been done like that? So it's the kind of thing that's always happened, but along the way, no one's really thought about it and updated it until maybe more recently, and they've gone, hang on, what?
Basically, yeah. So the tarot is hundreds of years old. It's from like the 1400s. It was created in Italy. And so the first people using it were white, and they were surrounded by white people. And it was like at the beginning of colonialism. So I can only imagine like it was a different time. And the deck that I was referring to, that's like the most popular deck now, or the deck that people might think of when they think of tarot cards, that deck came out like in 1901. So again, it was a different time. And I think it is what you were saying, like no one questioned it. And even the funnily enough, the person who did the deck, like who actually was the artist, wasn't even white. And it was just like, that was how it was at the time. And so I think people are just now taking their power back and are like, we don't have to, these cannot be the only cards. And so now it has exploded, and there's like cards that don't even have people. Like I have like 5 decks because I'm crazy, but one of the ones I have only has like animals and flowers on it. And so you completely bypass the whole problem of not connecting with the people on the deck.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And I guess if you're doing it without the book as well, you again create your own relationships with it, and therefore it doesn't really matter that they're not people, because you are then right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So you've touched there on the courses that you have done, or one particular that I guess that you've done because it was so popular. Is that what started you in to maybe creating more content? Was that the first one, or were there others before it?
No, so I'm also a certified meditation teacher. And at the time when my business first started, I didn't see anyone really selling like tarot classes. Like I saw a lot of, you can like make money doing tarot readings, and then people will pay for like meditation classes. So I would sell meditation classes and I would do tarot readings. And then I just got really frustrated because again, before all of this, I was really into the social justice world, and I was working against gentrification, and that was like my whole life. And I was like, people need to bring the two conversations together, because it's not like tarot just lives in its own little bubble. And I just decided one day that I wanted to put the two together, but it was really just like, let me do this experiment and see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. And clearly it worked, because
Yeah.
here you are. Okay. Brilliant. So how many courses do you have now, or have you done?
So I have a one-off, this free, like 3-part mini course on how to read the tarot without a book, which I highly recommend everyone get because it will change everything. And then the Decolonize the Tarot, I have the one about how to make sure your readings actually resonate and are empowering. 4. Yes, I had to say them all out loud. But the 6-week one, which is like the big one, and then the other like 2 workshops, and then the free class on how to read the tarot without a book.
Okay, awesome. So the guys, for those that are joining live, this is potentially the one you should start with. The free mini course is definitely the one to kind of dip your toes into and try and understand the cards. And you don't need to do it with a book, so that's the benefit of that one. So that's a 3-part series. Awesome. So that's the free mini course, and that is available. I'll have links to all of this afterwards, because that'll be easier.
I gave you the links there.
Yeah, that's cool. And then you've got this one to how to make sure your tarot card readings resonate and are empowering. So this is something you have coming up.
Yes. So that's going to be live, and then once it's after it's happened, I'm going to probably make it like a standalone thing, kind of like I have Decolonizing the Tarot. You can just buy it on my website. But live is great because I do Q&As at the end of all my lives, and I also do time for like guided reflection. Like I'll talk a bunch, and then people will have time to actually reflect and journal, and then I'll talk a bunch more. So live is always like preferred for sure.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, because then people can ask their questions there and then as well. And and then I guess the main one that we're about to talk about is you now have, starting on August the 10th, you have a 6-week training on tarot reading for specifically healing justice, which is, again, like you've said, is that's kind of your passion, and that's where it comes from. So let's talk about this one. So in terms of actually creating the course, so I guess we've kind of understood the why, although tell me if there's still more to say, but we've understood where you're coming from and why you want to do it. How did you, once you decided that, hang on, this is something that needs to be in a course, how did you go about planning it and kind of, well, realizing, or maybe not realizing, how long it needed and putting the structure in place for that kind of thing?
When you say how long it needed, like, are you asking like why 6 weeks? Or
like
so how long I needed to get my shit together for it?
Both, yes, exactly. So in terms of going from an idea in your head down on paper, how long did that particular planning? Let's split up. Yeah, let's talk about that one first. That was probably about 4 questions in one. So let's start with the planning. How do you go from what's in your head to physically planning something like that?
Ooh, okay, so this course came into my head, or the concept of teaching tarot in a way that is like helping people, like in a way that helps the world, came into my head April. And I wouldn't say that you need to spend 3 months sitting on an idea before you execute it at all. So that's not the idea that I want to give, but it came into my head in April, and then I started all the procrastinating researching of like, I had a friend who was teaching a tarot, like teaching 6 weeks of tarot, but it was like a tarot one-on-one. And so I had a conversation with her about like, how did you structure her course? And I was just like seeking out people who were doing something relatively similar, even though I still didn't see anyone bringing directly like social justice and the tarot together. And so I did my procrastinating research for a couple of weeks. And then I actually started telling people that the course was happening and that it was opening on August 10th in June. So like about a month ago. So it probably took 2 months of procrastinating research. I don't think that that's necessary, but that was my process.
That's fair enough. I would have done the same, to be honest. I mean, it's great to have an idea, right? And then you're like, yeah, and then it's like, hang on.
Right, like how do I even,
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm sure it's not just me, but people must have ideas all the time. But to someone like you has actually taken that idea and executed on it, whereas someone like me is like, oh, that would be a great idea, and then I do nothing about it. So I'm kind of interested as well in terms of the mindset. But like you said, I guess you had someone who was doing something not the same but similar in terms of another course that you could speak to, which I guess was helpful to understand structure wise.
I think that was like, I believe a lot in like getting intuitive nudges, and just like once you decide something, kind of like, have you read the book The Alchemist? I'm not going to go into a whole tangent about it.
Very long time ago.
Everyone read it when they were a kid.
Yes,
but
exactly.
In that book, they say like once you want something, like the whole universe conspires to help you have it. And I feel like because I was like, oh, this would be amazing, then I just randomly was like, oh, I think my friend is doing something kind of similar. And so honestly, it's 6 weeks because my friend's class was 6 weeks. Like really, we'll see if it feels too long or too short. But my friend gave me basically her outline of like, and of course it's different because she's teaching people how to read the tarot and I'm teaching like how to apply the tarot to something. But she gave me like, this is what I do in week 1 and this is the homework that I assign, and she helped it seem tangible and like doable for me. And I think I needed that. I wouldn't have just been able to come up with something from scratch, or maybe I would have, but I didn't need to. So
yes, yeah, use what you have, right? Why would you reinvent the wheel? It's already there. And you're right, it's clearly it was meant to be, because it just worked out that there's this structure that you could actually already take. So this is obviously not the first course you've done, but potentially the longest course. How do you? So at this point now, you've been almost not gifted. You still have a lot of work to do, but you've been given an outline, and you're now going, okay, this is great. I'm getting somewhere. The wheels are in motion. But in terms of physically putting that somewhere, and obviously you went online, and I actually before that, what was the reason for going online? Was it lockdown related, or was it always going to be something that was an online class?
It was always going to be online because, well, logistically, I'm moving at the end of August, so I couldn't have done it. But a lot of my clients, like, because I do virtual tarot readings, and so I was just so used to having clients all over the place, and I didn't want it to be restricted by like who was physically near me. And so, yeah, it was always going to be online.
Okay, awesome. That makes a lot of sense. So how do you then, you've got this course, you know what you're doing, how do you physically put it online? How do you create a course on the internet for people to then go to?
Yes. And so the way that I am doing it, and I really like it, this is the way that I did my my free course as well. I use a course platform, so I use Podia, but there's a bunch of them. There's Teachable. Like, online courses are becoming so huge now with COVID that like you could stumble and be on top of an online course platform. But I like Podia a lot. They make it really easy. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to host Zoom calls every week for 6 weeks. And then you can upload the recordings right into Podia, and people can make a password and a username, and then they can go refer back to the recordings, and then you can put files in there. So I'm planning to put all the slide decks in there, all of the homework, anything else that I decide. Like, you can put all kinds of file formats, and you can even have it pace itself out. So for the pre-recorded course, the free one, it will send you an email every day with like your new video. And so it just really makes it super easy you can email all your students really easily, and it does all the work. So please use a course platform. Do not try to.
Yes, that's well, again, and obviously it's, in hindsight, it's obvious that there are platforms out there, but I guess if it's just me and I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, there's an idea, I was like, I wouldn't, and clearly everyone Googles things, but it's great to know that there are these platforms that just make life easy for you, that if you have this idea, actually all you need to do is record. Well, it sounds like you can either record yourself or go live and upload all the information in one place, and the platform does the work for you.
Yes.
And you can just focus on the content, because you then don't have to worry about anything.
Exactly. And you can even schedule emails. Like you can say, I want this email to go out 5 days after this thing happens. Like it's very, once you set up the automations, it really does everything for you.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay, so actually thinking of that, do you need to have, I guess you need an email address, but do you need to have a website or anything like that? Or is it all built in, I guess, to the into this platform?
It's all built in. If you own a domain, you can integrate, like you can have it be on your domain, but it's not like, no, you don't need to have a site built out. It does everything for you. And it helps you build out like an online store. And I like Podia, especially this becoming like a Podia ad. But I'm sure this is true for all of them. It's just Podia is the one I use. But you can, they have this whole extensive, like you could just Google Podia, blah, 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 and it will show you exactly how to do whatever it is that you want to do, because it's one of the like widely used ones. They help you, like I said, they help you build out your online store, and it's just very, they sell everything. You can set up a payment plan. Like if you, if your course, if you want people to be able to pay in installments, it does that for you. So it's very easy.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so that sounds pretty straightforward, actually. Then it takes all the hard work out of it. In terms of promoting your course, you obviously have your Instagram that goes live, but is there any specific tips or tricks or things that you do in order to get that out there, like a mailing list or anything like that?
So I have a mailing list, and the thing that has been helping me the absolute most, though, which is what I would recommend if someone wants to sell an online course, is how I have my Decolonize the Tarot workshop. That warms people up to like, why would you want to be talking about this for 6 weeks? Why is this even important? Maybe this is something you've never thought about before, but it's something that you feel like, I don't like, maybe you should. And so spend an hour with me and listen to me like nerd out about this. And then if you want to nerd out with me more, you can do it for 6 weeks. But like, I've struggled in the past with expecting people to just like jump on my bandwagon because I've been on it for so long. And teaching that workshop and getting such a big response helped me to see like, okay, this is something that like people would really need. And so I started to pitch the class at the end of the first class. So after Decolonize the Tarot, in like the last 2 slides, I just put like, oh, by the way, like if you want to do this more, I have this 6-week class. And then people signed up like immediately.
That makes a whole lot of sense. And again, that's built in, so that's nice and easy to do. And you're taking someone from, okay. All right, that's pretty straightforward. I like it. Were there any tips or things that you've learned along the way of building courses in terms of engagement and what to include and what not to include, and stuff you think that resonates with people from doing it?
So one of the things that has helped me the most, because certain times with courses, the content, the subject area can get so broad and fuzzy, and things that like make sense to you together don't always make sense to someone else. And so I forced myself to have like a 3-step framework that I take people through, so that it's kind of like, it's obvious why we did part A and then we did part B and then we did part C. And anything else that I think is important to include that like doesn't fit into this framework, I'm just like making peace with it and saying like, I will teach another course, or I will like build this out some other way. But it helps me to like organize all of the ideas that are in my head. And I'm like, if a person could only know 3 pieces of information about this, like what are the most important 3 and what order do they need to come in for the person to actually understand? And that has helped me a lot.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, that's quite good to say, to have that, because I'd be one of those people that's like, no, I need to cram it in. But actually, you've got that structure there to say, no, you know something, it is this, it's important for the course to be structured. And then if there are things that fall out of it, then maybe we can do something else with it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. In terms of how you get people in the first place, I mean, that sounds really bad. I don't mean like that, but you know how you promote to people initially to get them. Do you find that people tend to come to you because they're interested in the area, or do you find that you're going out to people and actually they might not have ever even heard about it or thought about it?
Well, with so like people who have never heard of me at all, you're saying?
Yeah.
So no one has ever come to me, or very rarely will people come to me. I think now that I've become, like, after I did that class on Decolonize the Tarot and we had like hundreds of people, now it's like people do come to me, but at the very beginning, I would like go after her. I would, so they're like, Facebook is really great and there's tons of Facebook groups for everything. And so obviously read the rules, because they might say like you can't promote yourself or whatever in the group. But I joined Facebook groups that seemed relevant, and I would give free workshops, and I would say like, hey, I'm doing this free workshop. And then you get around the like self-promotion, because it's like, I'm offering a resource. People join the free workshop, they get to know who you are, and then ideally you set it up so that, sorry, my hair is like sticking up and I can't find myself. Ideally you set it up so that they sign up and they get onto your mailing list. And so then when you have something that's like a paid offer, you can just email them about it. But that was how I started, was I would go into Facebook groups and I would say like, hey, I'm a meditation teacher and I'm offering this free workshop. If anyone wants to come, then you can come. And then people signed up.
Okay, all right. That sounds very logical.
Yeah.
I like it. There's nothing crazy. It's just logic here.
Yeah. So I mean, I never would have thought to like randomly creep into Facebook groups. I think I heard that when I was like, oh, I actually like running a business. Let me learn how people run online businesses. I think I got that tip from some class, some online course that I was in, very meta, that was teaching people how to run a business. And they mentioned like Facebook is really good for like getting to know people who are already interested in what you're interested in.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. It's easier if someone already has that interest to say, hey, come on over, rather than trying to explain something to them that, you know, is not something that's on their radar. The other thing you've just reminded me of is that you also are a meditation teacher. So do you still do that, and how does that fit in with everything else?
So I meditate with every client before like a one-on-one reading, and I also meditate at the beginning of every class that I teach. Like I lead a guided meditation at the beginning of every class that I teach live. And why I do that, well, for me, first of all, I see the tarot as a self-development tool and as a way to kind of get out of your own head. And so meditation also really helps me get out of my own head. So if I spend a few minutes breathing before I go to the cards, I just feel more calm and less frantic. And so it has helped me, like even when I was just reading for myself, like in my bedroom, I was breathing and meditating a little bit before I would pull a card. So that's just very intertwined with how I do my work.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And also, I guess if you're calming your clients down, it's probably just it's a nicer experience for everybody then.
Yeah, everyone loves the meditation. I have like a little feedback form for clients to fill out, and that's like always gets a really good review.
Okay, yeah, I guess it makes sense. It kind of sounds quite nice, doesn't it? It's like, where was I going with that? So I know you mentioned earlier about some of the things that you wish you'd known, but do you have potentially any tips for somebody who might be interested in firstly getting into tarot reading in the first place, but also maybe following in your footsteps and doing something similar in terms of teaching other people?
Teaching other people tarot, or teaching online courses in general?
Tarot specifically.
Okay, great. I was like, I don't know how to teach other things. Okay, so for the people who want to read tarot, just who want to like learn more about it and they're curious, well, of course, I'm going to plug my free class because it's awesome and everyone who's taken it has given me good feedback. But I would say, as I said earlier, like don't get discouraged if you get your first deck and you don't feel a connection to it, or it bores you or like bothers you even. Like I've had people get offended by deck art because there's so much erasure there. And so if your first deck like pisses you off in any way, you don't have to use it. There's no like, yeah, you don't have to use it. Like go online. There's actually a website called Little Red Tarot, and that website has like hundreds and hundreds of indie tarot decks. And I find that like the kinds of people who I resonate with tend to resonate more with the indie decks than with the like flagship deck. And so don't get discouraged. Go on Little Red Tarot and like find the deck that really works for you. And yeah, don't rely too much on the book. Even if you don't want to check out my free class, like pulling a card every day and at the end of the day, just writing down some highlights from your day, that will get you very far. That's how I started. I did that for a month. And I definitely missed some days. Like I'm not disciplined enough to tell people to do something every day, but set the intention to do it every day, do it more often than not, all those things, and just see what happens. Just be open to things going really well.
Yeah, okay.
And then for the people who want to teach tarot, imposter syndrome is a bitch, and it will make you think that you need to be like absolutely stellar and perfect and have been reading tarot for 15 years before you ever teach anyone. That's not true. I have not been reading tarot for 15 years. As I said, I found it in college, and I lived most of my life without even knowing what tarot was, and now I'm teaching it and I'm getting great feedback from my students. And so if you feel like it's something that has helped you, like, lead with what you know how to help people do. Because when I was working in the social justice world, I was using my cards to navigate that journey. And so I can help people who are interested in using the cards to navigate the social justice journey and to do good in the world in that way. I'm not going to teach people how to use the cards to do something that I don't know how to use the cards to do. But chances are, if you feel called to teach something, it's because whatever you're doing is something that could benefit a lot of other people if they knew how to do it. So just stick to like what you can be your own billboard about. That's what's helped me the most, because I am a walking billboard for my course and for everything that I teach. And it makes it more authentic too. Like, the people know that you're the real deal because you have like a lot of evidence that you can actually get results doing the thing.
Yeah, and again, if you're doing something that you enjoy, it comes across naturally anyways, rather than trying to force something. And again, everyone just has a more enjoyable experience.
Yes, exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, that's awesome. I definitely learned a lot in that, like a lot. There's so much I didn't know. That was a lot of fun. Are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
I'm ready. I don't know what they're going to be, but
excellent. That's okay. People get scared, but actually I think they're quite nice. I don't think they're scary at all.
The one doing them, yeah, of course.
That's actually very true. I'm not on the other side. I enjoy it thoroughly. Okay, cool. What's the first word that comes to your mind right now?
Apple.
What's your favorite pizza topping?
Pepperoni, and I have some in my kitchen right now.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
To fly without airplanes, obviously.
I got that.
To fly for free.
With a cape and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. What TV show are you binge watching right now?
Oh, I just finished One Day at a Time, and I need a new one.
Okay, yes. Yeah, I like that one actually. One person, dead or alive, you'd like to have dinner with?
They always ask this question, and I'm never ready, and I always say Beyonce, but I think if I had thought it through more thoroughly, I wouldn't say Beyonce, but Beyonce, since this is rapid fire.
Okay, I love that. We'll go with Beyonce.
I feel like Beyonce would go to a really nice place. Like, I would have a great time, you know?
Yeah.
It would be fantastic.
She looks like she knows how to party.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll give you that one. What is the top thing on your bucket list?
Ooh, that's so interesting. I feel like COVID has killed all of my dreams. No, I'm kidding.
It's just delayed them.
Delayed my dreams. So recently I actually Googled non-binary millionaires, and there's none. And so it has now risen to the top of my bucket list to become the first non-binary millionaire, and we will see.
Good luck to you. That would be very cool. Yeah. That's a pretty cool title, to be fair. That's a good thing to have on your bucket list. What is one thing you are grateful for?
I'm thinking too much. I know it's rapid fire. One thing that I'm grateful for is I have a really incredible partner, and I'm grateful for him.
Lovely. Pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes all the time.
That's very easy. Are you an iOS or an Android person?
it's sad because I'm currently on a PC, but I don't like it. And so I aspire to be an iOS person.
Lovely. You can do it. It's great. Netflix or YouTube?
Ooh, Netflix.
TV or book?
TV. I have to be honest.
Yeah. It's the whole point. I don't want to find out you've been lying to me all along. And finally, what book are you reading right now?
Ooh. As we just talked about, I'm not a book person. I'm kidding. There's this book called Becoming Dangerous that I started. I'm not like a read every day person, but I'll read like a few chapters every now and then. It's a series of essays, so it's good for jumping around. And the essays are all about like queer people and their relationships to spirituality. And so just like different moments that they've had where they felt really connected to like the spiritual world, or how like their queerness and their spirituality have intersected. And so it's been really powerful for me to leap around in every now and then.
Okay, yeah, no, that's cool. I like that. There you go. That was nice and easy. I quite enjoyed that. Thanks.
I'm glad. Yeah, that wasn't as bad as I thought.
See, it's not. It's really nice and easy. I don't want to make people uncomfortable. Brilliant. I have had a lot of fun tonight. I hope you have too. Are there any final thoughts or comments or something we didn't cover that you'd like to get out?
I think one of the things that I would like to leave people with in general, and this is like not about tarot at all, but just about the way that I see my work and the way that I hope that like other people can feel, is just the idea that the world doesn't have to look the way that like you believe it looks. And what I mean is that when I grew up, I had no idea that I would be like running an online business. And this class that I'm talking about has already done like $10,000 in sales. And I never thought that I would make $10,000 selling anything, let alone on the internet. And it doesn't have to be challenging to be successful, like at all. You can just do the things that you think should be done and do them well and have a lot of fun. And things can fall into place if you allow for that possibility.
Just be open.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That's a great final comment. Okay, I'm not going to be able to top that, so I'm not going to try. So guys, thank you to everybody that joined us live. Thank you specifically to Samara for joining us. It's been great. And just a reminder, guys, all the courses I will link in the descriptions to wherever you're seeing this. So on YouTube, they'll be in there. On the podcast, they'll be in the show notes. And when I eventually get to updating my website, they will be in the episode notes in there as well. For anybody that is live, you can find Samara on Instagram. So there you go. It's on the screen. It's at Kasai Thrive. Please go and check her out. Go and if you're interested in any of this or just have any questions, I'm sure Samara will be happy to answer them and speak to you. So you can go and find her there. Otherwise, that's about it. We'll wrap up right there. So you can stay up to date for podcast news or anything like that on my Instagram, which is at JustBarbs, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Go and find me there, or at projectlifeadmin.com. And then, yeah, brilliant. So I'll be back next week, same time, same place, with a different guest. Be well, be kind, stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.